I think I found a great spot, this place called Got Old Wood, and take a look around here. There is some good 1x8, 1x12. This stuff is going to be perfect. It's what was in the truck when I got it. Actually, some of it, the wood in my truck looked like this stuff. Some of it was pretty beat up and worn, and so we're gonna put it back kind of how it was. It was too far gone to keep, the stuff that was in my truck. It had broken through, split, rotted through. You could step through the bed of the truck when I first got it. But I think this is gonna pay homage to exactly where this truck came from here in central Utah. Came out of Price and was used as a work truck. A welder owned it. He hauled coal with it. There was coal all down in the stake bed pockets, or in the stake pockets, yeah, so it was, so I think this stuff is gonna be great. Found a couple pieces right here. So let's see what we can do. Hey, I'm here with Mark from Got Old Wood Company, and I asked him to tell us a little bit about where he came from and how he got started over here. So go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, well, we were up in Bear Lake back in 2010, managing campground, and our winters were getting so boring. We started building birdhouses out of all this wood we were asking farmers for. And we had a big old arsenal of birdhouses for the spring, and started selling them to tourists like crazy. They just stuffed them in their sedans, whatever, they were huge. And then we moved down from here and started collecting wood, doing bank foreclosures. And pretty soon we just opened up a shop down there in Murray, and just started getting after it, and just like taking down barns, fences, buildings, taking down 2 barns right here in Salt Lake. One of them was Brigham Young's nephew's barn, back right in West Valley, right in the middle of town. Wow. Some out in Draper, and we just outgrew that place and got into this place, and we got a full 5-man crew taking out barns, selling wood, and just loving it.
That's great. Yeah, I came and visited you guys maybe a couple years ago, got some wood, and ended up building a barn door for our bathroom, our master bathroom at home, and I think I even have a video on that.
Really?
On my channel, so go check that out
yeah.
If you get a chance. But so this wood actually has some history. Where did this stuff come from?
The wider stuff here was brought down to us by a gentleman down in Idaho back in the 60s. He took it off to a schoolhouse. Okay. And there were just wood planking, so it was all covered. You know, it looked brand new when he took it out, but he kept it in his garage and seasoned it long enough and brought it down and brought us a trailer load of it. And then some of the smaller stuff we just barely got out of Lewiston, Utah, out of about a 100-year-old barn. More roof planking. Okay. And it was well seasoned. It wasn't really weathered, which is good because you didn't want anything too weathered for your truck. Right, right. But this, we'll call that seasoned. And
the stuff that came out of my truck was really weathered.
Oh yeah.
It actually, I had stepped through the bed.
You know, that's something else. Is I think even before Bear Lake, the very first wood I reclaimed was out of 48 Ford, and it was okay. 2.5 inch or maybe 2 inch. Tongue and groove eucalyptus was what the guy told me, and I looked it up, and that's what they were using. And so it was a flatbed. It wasn't a pickup, it was a flatbed. Yeah, and all my picture frames at the house are done in that. Very cool. Some really cool stuff. Very cool. So. All right, well, hey, thanks for taking a minute to tell us about this stuff, and we'll let you know what the final product looks like. Yeah, can't wait. Cool. Thanks, Mark. You bet. All right, we got our wood all loaded up, ready to roll home and get started on this guy. So there it is. Chopped some of it down so I could get it home.
Okay, so until yesterday, this piece of plywood was just resting inside the bed. And it was sort of trapped to where it couldn't fly out by the tailgate and the front of the bed. But it was making me a little nervous that it would kind of bounce around and fly up a little bit on the freeway. So I figured I need to secure it. But I also want to be able to get underneath for reasons like the battery there, and then exhaust and fuel, and the fuel pump there I've had to replace before. So I want to be able to access it, and I always thought I got to find a way to put this thing on hinges. So yesterday I went ahead and did that, and those right there are just some simple door hinges that I had scrap laying around, and then I used another one to make this little prop. And again, this will kind of be temporary, but we'll see how long it is. Might be permanent. So lift that up, and it works well as a prop. Front, I got some countersunk bolts, and then some wood screws into the wood bed using that cross member there. So nothing real fancy, more just functional. Have the option there still to put like some gas springs on there to be a little more fancy, or I could mechanize it and make it like push button electric or something. But for now, a stick of wood is working great. So let's put this down in a crude manner. Okay. And I'll set this down. Notice when I do that, I'm missing these eyelets or strap rings I've got on both sides. I'm using those whenever I haul a dirt bike or a motor or whatever else. Load of lumber. So I won't be using those corner angles that are normally in these trucks. Those would just be in the way. So I'll leave the sides open, and then I'll put bedwood on top. And now, getting to the part that I wanted to for a really long time. I went and bought some Barnwood that I wanted to use to replace the wood that was in here. In fact, I think I have a piece right here. You can see the old stuff. See how split and weathered and cracked that was? That was the original stuff. So I'm kind of mimicking that with this wood. It's I think it's a 1-inch thick material, and I got different widths up to 12 inches. Original stuff was down in the 5, 6, 7 range, but as you can see, I bought new metal strips. The ones coming out were pretty tore up. So these are new, and I think they're primered, so they could be painted. I elected not to get the chrome versions because I planned on maybe painting them black, but at this point I might be going to let them go raw and rust, kind of like the inner fender wells. So I was just laying this out, and this kind of looking like how I want it. I'm going the width of the wheel well on the edges, on both edges, so then I can put a straight strip down this. And because I'm able to lift this up and access the battery up front there, and the fuel tank, and you know, various other things, exhaust and that. I'm gonna keep that going. This is hinged up there on the front. So, just got some door hinges actually, just had them laying around, so I decided to throw that in. But now you can see I got one piece cut to the width I'm looking for and the length. And then I'm gonna leave these edges unfinished and the end unfinished, both ends. So now I'm just gonna start filling in all those pieces, and then I'll run some carriage bolts down through each of those holes. They'll just be a galvanized carriage bolt. And so, let's see how this goes. I'm gonna start making some cuts. I got basically 8 inches of visible wood in 4 of the 5 lengths, and then the middle one's wider. It's like 9.5 inches of reveal. And so then I'll just have to also make some notches in here to drop the strip down into the wood a little bit, maybe 3/16 or 1/4, and then that'll sit down in there and then bolt through. I'm just gonna go through this plywood piece. I'll act as my structure and not into the actual metal structure like on the original trucks. That way I can lift it up. And then maybe I'll get smarter about the lifting mechanism, put some gas struts in there or something instead of a piece of wood like a hood support. So let's get it going. You might have been able to tell what was going on in the time lapse, but I first of all cut them to length, because then I would only have to wrestle this 6.5 feet worth of board. These were a little bit longer, so, and then I cut them to width, and so I was going for 8 inches of visible wood, but then I was adding 5/8 on these 2 sides of the joint, and because this is 1.5 inches, and so I left just a little bit, 1/8 to 1/4 inch of a gap to drop the bolt down through. And then if that's not quite enough, I'll drill that a little bit larger, but I erred on the wide side for each of these. But there's how it looks setting in there, just rough, and I like it. Looks good. That's what I'm going for. So next thing I'll do is just cut a little channel on both boards to set this down into. That'll drop this metal piece down into the wood, and you get the choice, I guess. You can drop it all the way down so that the wood, like if you slid something into the bed, it would slide on the wood, or you could slide it on the metal if you have if you don't care about scratching up the paint or the finish on the metal. So I guess it's which one you care about more. In my case, I don't mind scratching up the metal. I'll let it rust, and anyway, so I won't set it down as far into the board as some people. So let's carry it on. All right, I said that I might take that primer off of these strips so that we could get it to match color-wise. There's nothing on this truck that's shiny, except for the wheels, I guess. And in the bed, I want it to kind of match these wheel wells and the rusty bed anyway. So I went ahead and used some Scotch-Brite, had both green and red. The green I think is finer than the red. The red takes it off a little quicker, but it came off pretty quick. Did these 4 strips in 20 minutes or half hour. And here's the difference. Here's one that's primed, and here's one that's scuffed up. All that primer came off just on the one side, this top side. And then I got thinking, wow, those look really nice and shiny, but it's probably just because I sanded them up. But just to be sure, stainless steel wouldn't rust very well. It's corrosion resistant. And so I just wanted to check to see if it was stainless. Well, you can do that with a magnet. So these are not stainless. Stainless wouldn't be magnetic like that. So there we go. Now maybe I'll get the process started of those rusting by spraying them down with some vinegar and lemon mixed with water, and get it going so they can begin to rust and they're not so shiny right from the get-go. Also gonna treat the wood. I'm gonna, once I cut these grooves into the wood for the strips, then I'll coat it with a varnish. I may even also do a little propane torch burning to kind of enhance the wood grain on it, and then we'll clear it. Since all the boards were cut to width and length, the next thing to do was put grooves in the boards for the metal strip to go down into. It'll set it a little bit more flush with the top of the wood. So here's 2 just sample pieces or scrap pieces, and I cut this groove using a dado saw blade, which kind of looks like this. This gives you the ability to vary the width of your blade cut. So I stacked about 3 of those plus the inside and outside blade. Show you what it kind of looks like on the saw. And then you're cutting all that entire width on one pass. And so this total width is 1.5 inches. And so then if you split that in 2 and put half of the cut on one board and half on the other, what you would get is 3/4 inch on either side. But you also need to account for the gap you're gonna have for your fastener to go down through. So this is a 1/4 inch fastener, and as you can imagine, that would keep this board 1/4 inch apart. So that means these 2 notches need to be less than 3/4 inch each. So there's your total 1.5 inches from the 3 or 2.5 to 4. And then if you look close, hopefully this camera can show it, you're about 5/8 of an inch of a groove on either side, and then take out that 1/4 inch. So it makes this groove narrower than that full 3/4 inch. But if you had built your boards with a smaller gap, and say these boards were closer together, maybe touching, and then you're just drilling a hole for your fastener, then yeah, your groove would need to be wider, up to that 1.5 inches, or if you wanted a little extra tolerance there, a little gap, then you can go wider than that. So I chose 5/8 of an inch and then this 1/4 inch gap, and then that should all fit really well in this truck. And let me just slide this out so you can kind of see how this is going to look. So there it is, all pressed down, and you can kind of see that the edges, these two edges are going to touch before the middle. So when you cinch this fastener down, that's going to grab both boards tightly. If you over tighten it, you'll bend this middle part down. But we'll see how that looks when we go. You can make this deeper, and so the top of this was lower than the wood. You could make another saw blade width cut down that edge and set the edges down in further, and then this would set on top of the wood. It's all your preference. But I'm gonna run like this, and I'm looking forward to it working out smoothly. So let's make the rest of these cuts. All right, show you how it turned out. So I just put the gate up, so see how it's gonna close out. A little bit of air gap, that's all right. So it turned out great. Got about a 1/4 inch at each gap, and these guys fit in there nice. We got good flushness on this end because I'm trying to clear this tie down hook here and over here. And then it's good flush here, so you can see how it looks there. Now all there's left to do once the wood is prepped is drill down through the plywood piece, this hole right here. Just drill down through that and fasten it. And on this end, I'm gonna hit this angle iron piece, so I'm gonna make a clearance hole below that in this metal. But everything else, all these holes, each of them clears the structure below it, so the bolt and nut won't interfere. Yeah, there's a preview, and like I said, I think I'm gonna treat the wood with a clear coat after a little bit of a burnt almond finish. So we'll do that and then show you what it looks like. Thanks for tuning in and liking and subscribing. I appreciate it. Let me know if you have questions. Hey guys, I wanted to show you how I was going to treat this bedwood here using torch to give it a darker appearance. And so I did a little test. First of all, this is the torch I'm going to use. It's basically a cheap weed burning torch hooked to a propane tank over here. And what I'm going to do is I'll demonstrate, but first of all, I'll just show kind of an example of a burn. This is a non-burn side. There's a burn side that just gives it a darker appearance. It kind of highlights the grains. You can see a difference between the grains when you do this, and you're just going to do it relatively lightly. So let me just fire this up, and you can see how it's done. So that's just lit, but then when I pull this trigger, it sends a whole bunch of propane fuel through it. So Blew it out. That's about the color that I'm going for, and if I go longer and closer, it will just darken it even more. It'll get to the point where it lights it on fire, so just want to go light on it. There you go. Then we'll take those boards and put a clear coat on them and assemble them there in the truck bed. So. Okay, one more thing on the way to getting this bedwood back in to Oldelicious. Wanted to put a finish on there, and so I started doing that, and so you could see the difference between pre-treated and post-treated wood. I determined I would want to use this spar varnish material. Because it has real good UV protection, and it's gonna have to be a durable finish for wood out in the bed of a truck. And so I know they use this on, you know, like boats and exterior doors and stuff. So what I'm noticing right off the bat is it is taking the color of the wood and just making it really dark. At least in its wet form. Maybe it'll dry a little bit lighter, but so you can see I wanted it to be dark, but maybe I could have got the amount of dark complexion I wanted out of this with just the spar varnish and not using the propane torch to burn it in. But anyway, I'm gonna be happy with it either way. It just looks really cool, and it's gonna match the dark brown rust color of this truck. And I'm also gonna re-oil this up using boiled linseed oil mixed with mineral spirits. Just to dilute it down a little bit to thin it out. So yeah, when I apply that to this truck and it kind of wears off over time, it makes a deep color change to the rusty metal. It also protects it, keeps it from rusting further, you know, rusting through or whatever. So I think it's going to match well ultimately with this bedwood. So, you know, I'm kind of excited. I just thought I'd show you as I got started, and when I'm done, I'll show you the finished product. All right. Coat one on this set of bedwood, and this is what it looks like. I did scuff it up with a little green Scotch-Brite to lightly sand it before applying coat number 2. So this might look a little drier and scuffed than it did after initial coat, which looked really good. I'm just putting another coat just so that we have the additional protection. And there's the start on this board of coat number 2. It's a lot more glossy and shiny when it's first applied, but the final sheen is satin anyway, so we're gonna see it probably dull out, won't be as glossy as this. But I'll show it to you after I get this all done. Okay, I just jumped the gun and I started spraying down these metal strips. And so I didn't show them to you all bare, but man, they were so bright and gray in color, which is this, what's on the edge here, I guess, that I just couldn't bring myself to put them in this bed, which there's your sneak peek before the metal strips are in. It looks so good. And with them gray strips from underneath, I can't really tell from underneath very well either, but these look terrible because they're not fully rusted out. So I made an executive decision to throw some black spray paint on them. This is a automotive level quality, which I didn't really care. In fact, I probably should have done a cheapo version of black spray paint so that it would rub off and burn off, UV degrade off of there, and then start to rust. But I had this sitting there, so I figured, if I'm gonna put on any paint, might as well be good. And I put on one coat or whatever from this angle, and so it looks really good. And then from this angle, since there's some bumps and whatever, I'm gonna hit it from this side too. And then that'll give us a good black sort of color to line in with this sexy bedwood. So just giving you an update. And don't forget, I had to paint the carriage bolts too, so I just stabbed them into a cardboard piece so I could make the heads match for each of these holes. So quick blurb. Okay, and now the moment that I've been waiting for. I don't know about you, but unveiling of the finished bed in the Oldelicious. So man, are you as impressed as I am with how that turned out? It's okay if you're not. Open that up so you can see how the end looks. I just really like the color, and like I said, kind of last minute decision, went with black painted strips, and that's sure to get scuffed up. Same with the bedwood actually, so we'll see how long that stays pristine looking. For now, I like it. It's got more gloss than I was kind of expecting. It's supposed to be a satin sheen to it, so you can kind of see some of it. Some of it's more glossy than others, but there it is. Now let me lift this up so you can see underneath. There's the fasteners through. And then let me point out one thing at the front of the bed there. So, because this is now twice the thickness that it was before, I had a little bit of a gap up front where the hinge goes, so that when you lift the bed up, that it doesn't interfere and hit the front of the bed side there. So I slid this back about 1/2 inch, and that way when you open it, it doesn't crash into that front. And now that I've said that, you can't really see it, so I'll put it down and let you look at that. But also, right here, I had half of this strip was supported by this board, but there was nothing under this one. It kind of, I made it line up perfectly front and rear, but there was no support. So I added this little piece, this little strip, so you'd have support on both sides of the metal strip. That way when I cinch this down, tighten that, it had something to support it. Okay, and then let me drop this down. I've been meaning to come up with a good like gas strut design too, so can lift that easy. Now with just the plywood, it was super light, not a big deal, and I just prop it up. But with this second layer of wood, it's quite a bit heavier. I'd maybe guess 80 pounds to lift from this back end. So I don't know how that's gonna turn out, but I'll do a little video on that too. Here's that front of the bed that I was telling you about. I just slid the upper layer back about 1/2 inch, and the front of this bed is bent, so it's a little tighter on this end and that end. But yeah, just slid that back about 1/2 inch. That gave us enough clearance to lift it up. Anyway, I'm really happy with how that looks, and finally, a couple years into the truck's life. Anyway, been real fun. Thanks for keeping an eye on the Overtime Garage and Oldelicious, and we'll catch you on the next one when we do more fun stuff to this truck. Okay, hey, good morning. Just wanted to give you a look at this truck bed in the sun. So there it is, kind of finished product. I'm really happy with how it turned out. Looks so good, and like I mentioned earlier, we'll see how long it lasts looking this good, but I'm okay if it gets a little beat up. That'll be fine with me. For now, it looks really good. It'll weather probably pretty well, and maybe even look better over time. So there's your final look. Leave me comments and questions. Be happy to know what you think about it, and answer any questions you may have. We'll catch you guys on the next one.